all the backup. Coming this way.
We have no public statutory hearings or delegations, bylaws and policies. Zoning bylaw number 1100/2024 adoption. I'm going to defer that to CEO.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson, members of council. Unfortunately, we have to postpone this item. We haven't received notification from the MOTI with respect to our referral to them. We had hoped and anticipated that would have been received, so we apologize for presenting it. When that we would have that in postpone, that would be much appreciated.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving along, council remuneration and expenses amendment bylaw number 1079/2024, first, second, and third reading. Sarah, do you want to go up? It's recommendation that council remuneration and expenses amendment bylaw number 1079/24 be given first, second, and third reading this 28th day of August 2024. Councillor Evans. Councillor Beach. Sarah, go ahead.
Okay, so today we're presenting council remuneration and expenses amendment bylaw number 1079. And we're proposing first, second, and third reading. Okay, so some background on this. So on April 12, 2023, at the Committee of the Whole, the committee made a resolution in support of proceeding with a standard of conduct bylaw versus a policy. At that time, the committee also, excuse me, supported including standard of conduct breach provisions within the council remuneration and expenses. And the resolutions supported recommendations made by staff based on legal advice and provincial resources. So the elected official standard of conduct bylaw was adopted last June, and section 30 specifically addresses remuneration following a fair and formal resolution process with a third-party investigator. So this remuneration piece is only after informal resolution has been approached, and then goes through a formal resolution process in which a third-party investigator investigates. And so if the investigator finds that that the elected official has breached the bylaw or has submitted a complaint that is frivolous, vexatious, or made in bad faith, remuneration will be reduced per the council remuneration and expenses bylaw. So that's already embedded in section 30 of your standard of conduct bylaw. And so we're bringing this forward as a housekeeping item to make sure that that provision is included in remuneration bylaw. So also in section 30, it says that there will not be a remuneration reduction if the third-party investigator finds that the elected official took all reasonable steps to prevent the breach was trivial or inadvertent, or the breach was because of an error in judgment and was made in good faith. Okay, so proposed amendments. So included within, satisfying this section within the standard of conduct bylaw, we just found an opportunity to touch in on a few things that needed to be cleaning up and some clarification. So we've added definitions to council, code of conduct, district, and mayor. We've included provisions for remuneration reviews, includes provisions for standard of conduct breaches, outlines financial penalty exceptions, confirms annual premiums, confirms technology provisions, and reaffirms the annual reporting of council remuneration. Okay, so discussion on code of conduct breaches. So this is the model that we're presenting here today is one that's being followed by other municipalities that have included remuneration reduction when found in breach or making a complaint that's considered frivolous, vexatious, or in bad faith. Penalties would be applied for 12 months following council's consideration of the investigator's report. So the first offense is a 10% reduction, second offense is a 15% reduction, and a third or subsequent is 25% reduction. Okay, so financial implications, council remuneration penalties are being proposed for council members found in breach, and there's no budget impact. Statutory obligations, so under the community charter, within 6 months of the first regular council meeting following a general local election, council must consider whether to establish a code of conduct or review a code of conduct. And the recommendation here is, of course, first 3 readings. And I'll just reiterate that this is an enforcement measure for the standard conduct, but there's other pieces that would be in play before a third-party investigation takes place. And of course, that would be up to the third-party investigator as to what penalty would be applied. And it's open for discussion.
Council, any questions? Councillor Bushel?
Through the chair. I kind of, other communities use this. I kind of checked with Salmon Arm and Revelstoke and Enderby, but I didn't see them doing it. Is it big communities or?
Yeah, so Seychelles, Nanaimo, Prince George, some regional districts, I think there's 3 or 4. I can't remember somewhere, but maybe didn't have it, but there's about 6 or 7 that applied the same model. And no, not every municipality or regional district has embraced it, but the ones that have are following the same model, which is the 10%, 15 and 25. And again, that's up to the third party investigator.
Okay.
So there's a fair process that occurs before such a reduction would occur. Investigation, yeah.
Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, I read through this and I mean, I don't really think this is quite the way to go. I mean, I'd certainly not like to see the investigator determine everything. When we did our code of conduct review, it was supposed to come back to council as well, right? If there was ever a problem, that council would then accept those findings or not accept those findings. In terms of the remuneration review, like, or the, reduction, I think it's just kind of trivial based on the amount of money that we actually make. The incentive around the code of conduct is, I would say, more reputational, and adding in the remuneration thing and that being decided just by the investigator, I wouldn't support that. I think there needs to be a vote of council if that was going to happen for an individual person of council after those facts were presented to us. And I think that's how our code of conduct was written in the first place. And I'll have to go back and kind of review that. I'll just maybe preface that with, I think what I would like to do is read this and then read the code of conduct that we passed as well in conjunction to make sure that we're, that what we've said as our code of conduct is aligning with this as well. But in terms of reducing the remuneration for a councillor based on 10%, 15 and 25, I don't really see a lot of point in that. I think the code of conduct I see a lot of point at, but this approach I really don't.
Sarah, go ahead.
Through the chair, so that section 30, that's the direct wording from the bylaw. So
Sure.
so then the standard of conduct bylaw, that's already within that bylaw. So if there's a desire from the council, and I know we haven't heard from everybody, to change that, then we would need to amend the standard of conduct bylaw.
Can I just ask a question though?
Kate, go ahead.
I thought that the finding had to be accepted by council, not just by the investigator.
So let me just go back here. So yes, the final determination by the council. So within 45 days of the investigator's delivery of the investigation, you have to report, decide on appropriate measures. And then elected official will be provided an opportunity to comment to council on the investigator's determinations. The remedies, so the remedies that may be imposed by council for violation include a number. So that would include, for example, a letter of reprimand, that the elected official issue a letter of apology, that they attend specific training or counseling, limitation on access to certain district facilities, prohibition from representing the district at events or attending conferences, public censure, or any other sanction recommended by the investigator, so long as the sanction is within the authority of council. And then there's different, things for council to consider, factors when determining, when to impose a sanction, but specifically remuneration. It says where the investigator finds an elected official breached this bylaw or submitted a complaint that was vexatious, frivolous, or made in bad faith, the remuneration to which that elected official would otherwise have been entitled shall be reduced in accordance with. So essentially, yes, the investigator is saying there's a breach and council has to consider that and agree to that. So I guess there is council consideration before that would occur.
Councillor Evans.
I don't know if I answered.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I think this is great because if like, let's say 3 councils from now, there's a situation like what's going on in Kamloops. I think that there's an old saying, if you get the shekels, you get the shackles. I think that you help rein it in by a little bit of incentive, even if it's not much. In some communities, it would be a lot. But I think it's a good idea because it's just a good code of conduct. And I was gonna say, yeah, council's got to ratify the decision of the investigator. So there's safeguards built in. It's not gonna be up to an independent person just being able to pronounce judgment on the mayor who's gone totally off the rails, not you, but in some instances.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I think this is really good and I like it.
Still 2 years to go. Bailey.
Okay, then I would suggest an amendment because the way it's written now, I think it says by the investigator. And then it should be replaced and say determined or like by council, right? So it should be.
Go ahead, Shauna. Oh, okay.
And maybe just finish my point is because right now it says determined by the investigator. It does not say found by council, and which that is how we wrote our conduct, is that council would have to find that report. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just maybe reiterate, yeah, so when it comes to the code of conduct, so then the investigator would determine whether or not a breach had happened. Remedies and there would probably be recommendations on remedies, and those remedies would be brought back to council. The remuneration portion of it, that only can be brought into play when the investigator has, but the decision on the remedy is still on the part of council. So I guess then you guys are dealing with how that accurately then reflects on the amendment to this policy, or this bylaw, pardon me.
If I may.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it just comes down to making it very clear that if we're gonna do a reduction, that is one of them. Obviously is part of the code of conduct, but then that has to be implemented by council. As it is written right now, it says by the investigator. And that I don't think has ever been our intention. So, maybe it's just a little bit of wording here, but I would say, sorry, I'm just looking for the actual section. It says that, it says by the investigator, so it should be, determined by council.
What section's that?
3.1.
3.1, found by the investigator. So where a member of council has been found by the investigator, well, I would say where the member of council has been found by or of council to have breached the code of conduct, then you could reduce the salary. But to me, just going back to my original point, based on our total remuneration, I don't think that's the strongest way to actually ensure compliance, just because of the relatively low amount of money we're talking about. But it should be in council's purview. That's all. And the way it's written right now, it says the investigator.
But can I just make a point, have a quick question here? Does that mean that the investigator has to bring it back to council?
Yeah.
Council makes that decision.
Right. Yeah, but right now, if I could just quote, it says that subject to section 3, where a member of council has been found by the investigator to have breached the code of conduct bylaw. No, it should be by council that have breached the code of conduct bylaw. Because what happens in our process is that the council would get the investigator's report. And then council has to decide what those remedies look like based on,
It seems like a little bit of an interpretation thing because the investigator does look at it, but brings it back to council.
So sorry, through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not determining whether the breach occurred. That's the investigator.
Correct.
The investigator determines if the breach occurred. If the breach has occurred, then council gets to discuss the remedies, right?
Right.
So I think it's just the language. It is the investigator that deems the breach has occurred, not council.
Anyone else? Council Bushel.
Did I miss, who's the investigator
Third parties.
30.
besides on the third party?
Sorry, through the chair. So
Sorry, so
when-
Shauna wrote the standard of conduct.
So the way that the standard of conduct, sorry, I keep popping up here, but the way the standard of conduct was written in the beginning is that those complaints come through the CAO. And that we have wording within the standard of conduct to have an ad hoc investigator, which is typically legal counsel. Sometimes I call them ethics commissioners, that sort of, and so we would then retain them, and that lies in the hands, the facilitation of the process lies in the hands of the CAO, unless the CAO is involved, and then it lies in the hands.
And through the chair, this formal
Thank you.
process is only done after informal resolution has been attempted and not completed.
Right.
There's a
Bianca, and then, thank you. Bianca, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to touch on Ian's part about the percentages not being enough to really make a difference. We could up the percentages.
Sure.
That is a choice, that's a decision we could make.
Councillor Rich, thanks, Bianca.
Through the chair. I mean, I think first of all, I would hope that councillors follow the code of conduct and are not, they're acting appropriately, not because they don't want to get penalized, that they're took the oath seriously. So, asking people to perform so they don't lose money is one thing. And then honestly, I feel slightly confused and feel like I personally would like to table this and look at the code of conduct and maybe ask some more questions. I'm not prepared to vote on this without, I want to look at the code of conduct next to it, like Councillor Bailey said, and kind of ask a few more questions, and maybe I can direct those through Daryl and stuff, but I'm feeling there's a lot of different things going on here. So
Yeah.
my suggestion would be to table it and we come back to it until we're clear.
Through the chair, that can definitely happen if that's what council desires. As I said, this was a motion from the committee to bring this forward, and so staff is following up on that. The standard of conduct bylaw was adopted last year, and I maybe assume that would be reviewed prior to this coming forward. But I'm happy to, bring it back at a later date for further committee discussion or to a regular meeting.
So it sounds like, is that council's wish? Speech.
Yeah, I feel that would be most appropriate because to have the code of conduct come to us alongside of this for consideration at this point.
Councillor McCabe.
I'm willing to vote on this, but I'll go with the will of council.
Ditto. Councillor Bushel.
I'm okay to table it. So I could do some more homework on it too.
Councillor Evans.
Same as Malcolm, I'm ready to vote, but I'm cool with waiting.
Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I think we should table it as well, because, I mean, I guess I could be criticized for bringing this up, but I do think there's also something in here about, pay that we should probably as a council actually have a discussion about this year, in times of, our councillors and maybe even the mayor making minimum wage on some of these things. And I know that's always a thorny issue, and that's fine, I'll bring it up, but there's definitely been months where you can track your hours, and I would say that there's probably a lot of people now making even the $17.40 an hour. So I know that's part of this, and I think we should maybe have a conversation about that, because with inflation and everything else, I do think that we want people to do these jobs. They're important jobs, but we also have to be able to at least say, hey, you know, your time is going to be compensated to a certain degree, certainly not a high amount. There's a ton of public service is attached to all this, and I don't think anybody has anything otherwise, but that is part of this bylaw as well. And I do think that should have some consideration amongst council this time, from my opinion.
Councillor McKay.
Yeah, to Councillor Bailey's point, that's in 2.2
Yeah.
for the mayor and the councillors. Maybe Shauna could speak to that. Consumer price index formula that you use on that, or?
Yeah.
There is.
Through the chair, so we actually have an amendment to that section so that, I mean, this piece already existed, that effective January 1st of each year, the remuneration of the mayor and each member of council will be increased based on the consumer price index within British Columbia for the previous year. And then this is the part that we're adding in, because what I realized when I was viewing it is that there's no, when is it reviewed? Like, yes, that goes up, but when is there a formal review? So council will consider conducting a remuneration review and reporting the results at least 1 year before the next election. The review will consider remuneration paid to elected officials in similar local government jurisdictions. When establishing comparison groups, population combined with other factors that influence elected official workload and level of responsibility will be considered. Simple formulas will be utilized to ensure the calculation of remuneration levels is as straightforward as possible. In doing this amendment, there was a review of the best practices for council remuneration, and they suggested that it be formalized as to when reviews take place.
Go ahead, Shauna.
Just to speak to that a little bit further, every year when we do budget, we do salary surveys. I conduct salary surveys for all of staff, including mayor and council, so that and putting this piece in it is good because it formalizes within the bylaw when those reviews take place. Just every October, November, we do that within municipalities. We've used 2 different sizes of municipalities throughout British Columbia. And we look and we try to ensure that we are staying within those, and we'll bring it to the attention of if it's not. So that happens every year in budget time.
Yeah.
Formalizing it in the bylaw is great.
Councillor Bailey.
I'll take the bullet on this one. It's fine. Minimum wage has gone up substantially in the last 3-4 years. These numbers have not. I mean, they've gone up 5, 6, 7, 8% on a base of 11,000. So you're talking about $500, $600, $700 in a year. If you start taking out, if you really want to do a true comparison, you take how many hours you work in a month as a councillor or mayor, and then you apply the provincial minimum wage to it, and then you try to get to that number. It's a very few amount of hours that would take. And that's kind of my point, that we're at this point where I do think we need to take a look at it, because if you say in a really busy council month, you're doing 60 hours, which is, or 70 hours, which is not entirely unreasonable. I think for most of us, then you're below the provincial minimum wage based on the hours. And I know that's not how we work. We don't work on an hourly basis, but we need to also be competitive, and we want people to take these jobs and not, we want them to be interested in these jobs, not for the financial compensation, but also that they're not taking it to lose money either, right? And so there is a balance, and all I'm saying is, and politicians hate talking about this, and I'm even a little squeamish about it. But, the councillor right now is I think we're probably a little low. And I think that probably other municipalities are thinking about the same thing. It's a balance between, everything. But, for example, the entirety of council last year, I think less than our chief administrative officer. So that was 7 people versus 1, which may be fine. But what I'm saying is, I think we do need to have a conversation about it. So that was part of this whole thing. I'm fine to bring it up, and whatever people may agree with me, may not, but I just think it deserves a look. And I know it's always a tough thing for councils to discuss, because you're talking about your own pay, but I think this does go beyond just us, and people make decisions whether to run or not for these roles based on if they can actually afford to do it. And I think this has been a conversation in other towns as well.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And it's a tough conversation for council because it's definitely, it's bottom line, it's taxes, right?
It is, yes.
Bianca, do you want to make a comment?
No, I just, once we finish up this conversation, just with that full review, because that'll take quite a staff time. If, when we finish this up, if we get a motion, if that's the route that council wants to go.
Through the chair, though, in the bylaw, this, well, I guess, because we're not adopting it.
No.
The bylaw was adopted, it would be that within the year of an election, that would take place at budget time, right? It would probably make the most sense. So you're looking for a motion, if you staff to do that?
If we wanted to present something for this next budget for 2025, just on remuneration, it'd be great to have a motion sooner rather than later, so staff can work on. We can figure out a timing for that. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor Bailey.
I'll make that motion that, sorry,
We have a motion on the.
There's a motion on the table already.
yes, right.
If council wants to postpone the decision on 3 readings of this bylaw, I would just ask that I have direction on when I can bring that back, or when staff can bring it back. Can we bring it to the next meeting, or just for a set time, a postpone to a set time?
Okay, so this one would be, this is a council asking to compare this or to a code of conduct right now. So can you, is that correct? So can you send out the code of conduct and
It's
we
in the
can,
staff report.
it's in the staff, okay, so we're just, okay, so sorry about that, I missed that part.
So just to.
You want to bring it back to the next,
Time.
I guess the question is, do you guys want to bring it back to the next council meeting? Do you want to
Everyone.
compare these 2 documents? Yep, go ahead.
Okay, there's just, I guess, now there's 2 things.
Just 2 things going.
There's,
now.
because it's in the same document, though. That's what I'm trying to say, is that the remuneration thing is actually codified in this document as well. And it's actually stated. So they are part and parcel of the same thing.
So,
Now,
sorry.
yeah, so, I mean, we can maybe bring it back. I would suggest the end of the September meeting. That gives us a month to. I'm looking, okay, maybe it's not the end of
A
September.
bit more time.
A bit more time.
Yeah, if you want to include the remuneration.
I think it would be useful to do so.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Through the chair, so then the suggestion I'm thinking that Bianca might agree to is that we bring this back after that discussion around council remuneration occurs at the finance committee. So we would wait.
First finance.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so the motion, I guess, would be to postpone this matter until it is brought forward to the finance committee.
Okay.
Okay,
Want to amend, do you want to amend this one?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
so make an amendment to the motion to bring it back after the first finance committee discussion. Does that work?
Councillor Evans?
yep,
Which is November.
Yeah.
But, and often the staff, often the review of what council makes does not happen in November. The meetings, so it would have to be on that agenda for the first finance meeting in November, whatever that is, usually late November.
They haven't been totally set yet, so we'll look at the timing and we'll bring it to whatever ends up being the first finance committee meeting. And if we find a way to make that happen in beginning or end of October, then maybe we can, but staff will work at that and get it to you as earliest as feasible.
Okay.
Right now with healing center and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
take care of that biz first and then
Well, I'm happy to leave it open and then staff can determine that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The date open. Okay, do I have a seconder on that? Councillor Beach? All in favor? No? Discussion?
No, I'm waiting for opposed.
Opposed? Okay, 2 opposed. Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Carry on. Recommendation that the flag proclamation and elimination policy C13 be adopted this 28th day of August 2024 and proclamation policy C7 and flag policy C12 be repealed. Can I get a mover? The Rich, Council Bushel, okay, Sarah.
So today we're presenting this revised policy that incorporates proclamation requests, flag requests, and illumination requests. So the purpose here is to repeal the existing proclamation and flag policies and adopt the new policy that proposes consistency and fairness in how awareness and recognition requests are handled. Okay, so the background. So on April 10th of this year, staff presented flag policy number C12 and council adopted it. Following that, on April 24th, there was council discussion at the committee of the whole, where Councillor Pete asked for staff to consider having annual dates where flags are flown, and then also asked staff to look at having the Secwepemc flag flown in the community. And so staff was asked to review the policy and then to present back. Okay, so within this policy, there are annual days of recognition. And so the dates of recognition that have been included in this policy are based on motions previously made by council. And also just what's occurred. So there's always the Orange Shirt Day flag that's flown on September 30th. And in the last 2 years, council has proclaimed May 17th as the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. And we've flown flags on that day for the past 2 years. Otherwise, the Canadian flag is flown. And in that section of the policy, it also just talks about guidelines for how flags are placed. And that's based on the order of precedence by Heritage Canada, and also when half-masting occurs. And I will just note that there have not been discussions with Slachine about having a Secwepemc flag flown elsewhere in the community. So that would be included on the next council to council agenda. It just wasn't discussed at the last meeting. And so we haven't included it in our policy, but we do note that the Secwepemc flag is always in council chambers since behind Mayor Anderson. So we've better defined the criteria for proclamation requests and roundabout illumination. It's also incorporated in our correspondence policy. So how it works is based on our correspondence policy, any requests that come in go to the operations manager. He will decide, whether to do it or not. I don't think he's ever declined. But if the operations manager was to decline, they'd be able to write to council to have council look at it and make a decision. But September is a pretty busy month for illumination, and that's the roundabout, right? And these groups that are supporting a cause and want to raise awareness, they're very thankful when we do that. So we have included annual illumination dates based on requests we've accepted in previous years. Okay, so the recommendation then would be that council adopt this new policy that incorporates flags, proclamations, and illumination requests. And we've now put it in one form. So there's one form for any of the requests. And here it's saying that it would need to come in before 30 days prior. And when we're looking at these requests, it's just that the corporate officer would make sure that the criteria is followed and then work with that person and bring it forward to council for consideration. So recommendation was that the flag proclamation illumination policy be adopted, and we would be repealing proclamation policy C7 and flag policy C12. That's it.
Thanks, Sarah. Councillor Beach. Councillor Beach.
Move that we adopt the recommended.
We've already got a first and seconder on it.
Do we? Oh, okay.
We're up for discussion right now.
Oh, God. Okay.
Any comments from council? All in favor? And opposed? Carried. Go ahead. Oh,
That is it?
I can present first.
you're doing the, secondary. Okay, recommendation that council authorizes the mayor and corporate officer to enter into design agreements with Houston Projects, Inc. and McDermott Construction Limited per the award of expression of interest number 122020147. We'll go with that one first. Could I get a mover? Counselor Rich. Counselor Evans. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. So there's two parts. So for council to consider design contracts with Housing Projects, Inc. and McDermott Construction. They were the designers that were awarded the EOI for this project. And then the second part is for council to select 6 designs for the pre-approved plan library. So we have the designs now, and then we'll be moving into doing the construction plans and offering them to the public. We have a housing committee recommendation on that. So some background. So in 2022, council endorsed the housing strategy for Sycamoose, and secondary dwelling units were identified as an action item under innovation. In April of 2023, staff started the process to develop the pre-approved plan library. Okay, this is like a little bit of a background. I can't read that, so. So there's been a lot of steps in this process. So in 2023, in April, the EOI was issued. And the housing committee reviewed the EOI submissions and scored them based on a matrix. That was provided to the planning and development committee as well and presented at committee of the whole. On October 5th, the housing committee recommended Housing Projects, Inc. and McDermott Construction be awarded. And then on October 11th, council awarded the EOI to Housing Projects and McDermott to produce 3 designs each, which was increasing the budget from 10,000 to 16,000. Originally, it was just going to be 1 designer. January 11, 2024, the housing committee recommended proceeding with public engagement to determine preferred designs. So that occurred between February 1st and 29th of this year, and we received 25 responses. July 18th of this year, the district hosted a housing information session. There was 1 additional survey completed in full. It did not impact the results of the survey. On July 25th, the housing committee recommended council enter into design agreements with Housing and McDermott and proceeding with the construction drawings for the top 3 for each designer as preferred by the public. And then just recently on August 20th, the planning department presented a staff report with recommendations on design options. And in consideration of these recommendations, the committee changed the designs that they are recommending to council for McDermott. So the agreements, of course, outline the terms, fees, payments, and use of the documents, and this is based on the EOI submissions and what was agreed to in awarding those, the expressions of interest. The agreements have been reviewed by Development Services, Corporate Services, Finance, and representatives from Housing and McDermott. So this is again that piece on the report from June Kwan, our planning assistant. He's here today if anyone has questions. Put you on the spot. So the planning department recommended the following. So pick 2 secondary suites, pick 1 design with the smallest footprint, pick the accessible suite, pick at least 1 design with 2-bedroom layout, and pick at least 1 design that is a coach house. And this was the resulting resolution. So that the housing committee recommends District of Sycamoose Council selects Garden Suite 1, Garden Suite 2, and Secondary Suite 1 from Housing Projects, Inc. and small adaptable suite, 1-bedroom optional loft, option 1, small adaptable suite, 1-bedroom suite, above garage, option 3, and accessible suite from McDermott Construction to form the pre-approved plan library. So the budget for housing in 2024 is 20,000. In 2023, it was increased from 10 to 16. So based on the EOI, the housing projects, we're looking at $9,000 and McDermott is $6,000 for a total of $15,000. And the fees for design use. So when we issued the EOI and we had the submissions, we said that it would be provided at cost to the district. And so housing projects are going to cost $500 per use, and McDermott Construction is $1,000. Sorry, 1,000 per use is the royalty, but that's what we would also be providing them to the public at. Plus taxes. Bianca, do you want to add anything on that?
No, I think you actually covered it.
And that, so that would be for the plans themselves, they still have to pay permit fees.
Mhm.
So. The secondary dwelling, pre-approved, or sorry, the secondary dwelling unit pre-approved plan library, really supports the Bill 44 housing statutes and the District of Sycamoose housing strategy. We have a secondary dwelling units webpage, and that'll be more fully developed as council decides what plans they're gonna offer. We can update that page. And it does align with the strategic plan, which is to implement the housing strategy utilizing the housing need assessment. And so just going back to that first recommendation, which there's a first and seconder, is that council would approve the mayor and or authorize the mayor and corporate officer to enter into the design agreements. And then the second and third recommendations are following what has been recommended by the housing committee and what designs to select moving forward for construction plans.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Any questions? Go ahead, Councilor McKay.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Is it possible, like, we're gonna maybe break these out for the first recommendation for housing, we could bring up the housing design options on the screen. And then council will have a chance to look at that and then vote on that recommendation, and then the same thing with McDermott. We can break those out because they're different recommendations.
Go ahead, sir.
Through the chair, could I ask the motion that's been moved and seconded currently is about the design agreement. So if you vote on that, or if there's discussion on that and then a vote, then we could proceed with how Councilor McCabe is suggesting by looking at the design.
And let's call the question on this. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, carried. Okay, Councilor Rich and Councilor Evans, are you okay if your name stands for the next two as well? The next two recommendations as a first and second? Okay, thanks. Recommendation that the following designs from Houston Projects Inc. be selected as preferred secondary dwelling designs to form part of the District of Sycamoose pre-approved design library gardens, suite 1, 2, and secondary suite 1. Could I get a mover? Oh, I got those. I got you already.
Oh, yeah, right, this is.
Look at me being efficient.
So.
Councilor Bailey?
Just, so are we just gonna go through each one or are we?
It's the guy that went first. Councilor McCabe? Yeah, this.
Because I'm fine with.
Questions on this?
No.
Councilor Rich?
Chair, I just want to say that the housing committee and staff and June, we have dug through these and looked at footprints and looked at our, we've had different developers come in that actually build in Sycamoose for many, many years and chat with us about different things. And then including the town's vote, and we've had a couple open houses and online stuff. So this is what housing is recommending, and I feel like we did a really great job, and staff did an incredible job giving us the information to make great choices. No one wants to argue with me.
Thank you, Councilor McCabe.
Yeah, I just echo everything Councilor Rich said. So these three designs are, I think, good for Sycamoose, and we've gone through the gauntlet on that. But the next batch of three will augment what these don't have. So please don't let the lack of what's on these three influence your decision, because the next three will cover off what's missing. Don't worry, they will.
Counselor Rich?
And I'm gonna throw in there that we did pick one that is accessible. So in our library, we will have an option for people that need accessibility. That is like, I really feel like we've kind of hit every box that there is.
Okay, any more discussion? Call the question, all in favor? It carried. Recommendation that the following designs from McDermott Construction Limited be selected as preferred secondary dwelling designs to form part of the District of Sycamore's pre-approved design library, small adaptable suites, one bedroom optional loft, option one, small adaptable suite, one bedroom suite above garage, option three, and accessible suite. Discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thanks, Sarah. Don't go away. Regional Accessibility Advisory Committee options. Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. So council recently considered a funding agreement for a regional accessibility advisory committee with the Columbia-Shuswap Regional District, the town of Golden, the city of Salmon Arm, and the city of Revelstoke. And council had put forward some amendments to the agreement in support of the agreement and also to the terms of reference, but sorry. So the purpose here today is to determine how to meet the requirements of the Accessible British Columbia Act and reconsider participation in a regional accessibility committee with Salmon Arm, Revelstoke, Golden, and the CSRD, or to opt out and take a different approach. So just going back, so legislative requirements. So when the Accessible British Columbia Act came into reached royal assent, it includes now it was in September 1st of 2023, and there's requirements. So that a committee be established, that an accessibility plan be developed, and that a process be put in place to receive public input about accessibility, and that is to identify, remove, and prevent accessibility barriers. So for the committee, there's composition goals. At least half of the committee should be persons with disabilities or from organizations that support people with disabilities. At least one member is an Indigenous person, and it should aim to reflect the diversity of people in the province. So the regional model, this would have a maximum of 6 members with the intention of pulling representatives from each geographical region. Legislative requirements, so the accessibility plan. So it has to identify, remove, and prevent barriers to individuals in or interacting with the organization. Consider inclusion, adaptability, collaboration, self-determination, and universal design. And it is developed in consultation with an accessibility committee. It then needs to be reviewed and or updated at least once every 2 years. So some background and consideration on September 1st, 2020, sorry, that should say, yeah, no, that's right. On September 1st, 2023, the Accessible British Columbia Act received royal assent. September 13th, 2023, council reviewed the funding agreement for the regional model and passed a motion that agreed to it in principle with a proposed expense cap of $12,500. So staff did go back to the administrator, regional district, and they identified that that would not be possible with how it's being tracked. And that's based on the invoicing, so that invoicing for the prior year. So on August 14th, we presented the agreement in terms of reference, and there was amendments proposed. So we've been advised that Salmon Arm, Revelstoke, Golden, they've all agreed to the funding agreement and the terms of reference. And so at this point, there will be no changes to the terms of reference or the funding agreement. And so we need to determine if we're going to opt in as is or opt out. So financial implications, the regional model has a cost sharing advantage and bolsters grant opportunities. The budget will be approved by participating members at the CSRD board table. Costs will be split evenly between members. The estimated cost for each member for the first year is $3,000, and that's expected to be higher for advertising because of the call for volunteers. And if we're not successful in finding those volunteers, it would need to be run a second time. The CSRD will provide an annual invoice to members for the year prior, And it was indicated that there'll be a better indication of the expense after the first year. And that council and each member has the ability to give written notice 6 months to step down from the Regional Accessibility Committee funding agreement. And at that time, if there was another local government that too wanted to step down, they could give their notice. So there's that ability to opt out. Okay, so statutory obligations, this isn't a nice to have, it's a must have. The province, we're not in compliance currently because September 1st, the legislation came into force. But the province knows we are working towards compliance with the act through our participation in the regional model and the communication that they have with the administration, the corporate services department of the regional district. Communication, so the calls for volunteer advertising is being prepared, and we do have an accessibility webpage that we will build out as this committee is formed and the meetings are scheduled. Okay, so options here again, opt into the regional model by reconsidering the resolution 189 and resolution 192. Opt out of the regional model and direct staff to begin the process to establish a district committee. Considerations, so in these options, sharing administrative costs versus assuming all of the costs. So we've estimated it would approximately be around $9,600 to the DOS if we opt out and go on our own versus an estimated $3,000 if we opt in. Grant opportunities, the regional model, we got notice that we've already received a conditional grant to develop the plan. Salmon Arm, Revelstoke, and Golden Councils have supported the agreement and the call for volunteers is ready. Capacity for staff and the impact of on staffing resources and delayed compliance with the Accessible British Columbia Act. And so those are the two options that staff is presenting for council to consider today. And if council wishes to reconsider, that can be done under a council procedure bylaw with 2 members asking for reconsideration. And so I'll open the floor for discussion.
Councillor Rich.
Through the chair, so if you go down, Sarah, or up, you go. So you've got a list of it's gonna cost more money, it's gonna take more staff time. There's already, so what are the positives of us doing it ourselves? Because there's not one positive of Sycamus doing it itself, and there's gotta be some, like, it's not very balanced. It's like, here's all the reasons why we shouldn't do it, but why should we do it?
Through the chair, so staff has been working on this regional model with the other members for a year. So that's the staff recommendation. And so these are the benefits that staff sees in moving forward. But we haven't looked at running it ourselves. We've gotten some rough estimates for admin time, advertising and materials, but we would need to start planning. And so that will take some time if council decides to go that route.
Councillor Evans.
My opinion is we should opt into it because of the fact that it's almost like we're reinventing the wheel if we do this on our own. There's already other communities that are well on their way, and I'd rather join them and just have some synergy instead of trying to start on our own here. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Councillor Evans. I'm going to echo what you said. So there's 2 of us that, given some consideration and understanding a little bit more about the staff commitment and the cost and just staff commitment and costing. I mean, that's enough for me too. Councillor Rich.
And I'm through the chair, I'm gonna say we opt out. Again, we're looking at, so if we get a grant, then who gets the money? Like if you look at the watershed and you look at different things like that and how much money actually comes back to Sycamus for what we pay in. And I think we're a really individual community with our lake that is different from what Salmon Arm has for their docks and stuff. I mean, one of the things, and it comes actually in our correspondence, and again, it's come up a lot that we do have a ramp going on to that we need to get a ramp going on our public beach. So people in walkers and our old people, those stairs are really hard for them to get down, or if someone's got a wheelchair and want to take a kid down to the water, we don't have that. So again, we're paying into this, but we're not, how do we know what we're getting back? I think Sycamus should do their own thing. We're good at doing our own thing. We've done our own medical thing. I think we can manage it.
Thanks. Councillor McCabe and Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I'm gonna vote for this, that we opt in, because the cost savings is substantial and because of capacity of staff.
Thank you. Counselor Bailey.
I know this is a tough one for me. I certainly don't like that, I think we presented some reasonable solutions to give us some more comfort, and it didn't, obviously wasn't considered or it was just rejected, I guess is probably the better word for it. So that doesn't make me comfortable when I'm entering into an agreement with what should be partners. And I think we came back and we said, hey, got some concerns. We didn't even put like just COLA, we put 6%, let us know. And so I guess all of those things, which I thought were reasonable, also about each municipality has a chance to appoint a member. That apparently is not agreed to either. So,
I think each area is allowed to put.
Well, no, it's appointed by the CSRD board is my understanding.
Yeah, through the chair, so there's a call for volunteers that will go out, right? And there will be eligibility requirements and a matrix that will be developed. The call for volunteers, the recommendations will come in, or they'll come in, and then they'll be presented to the CSRD board, for which Sycamus does have a representative with Mayor Anderson sitting on that board and representing council.
So,
And the intent is to provide to, have representatives from the geographical areas, right?
so I just want to finish my comments because I did touch on this, it was a couple of weeks ago, I think we dealt with this, is that I actually think it should be each council that's pointing it, my own opinion. So this is tough because I can see the rationale of working together, but then I also I kind of have a problem here because I think if you're going to work as a partner, then if somebody comes to you with some reasonable suggestions, which I think we did, some of them should have very likely been accommodated. So I'm kind of going into this going, well, okay, if none of it was, then why am I entering in a partnership agreement over it? It doesn't make me feel very good. The other thing is, I take Councillor Rich's point about what is the potential benefits of doing it our own. There is a staff time, but is there something that we can derive out of this that would be kind of unique for Sycamus? Doesn't mean that all of these things that are downloaded to us are necessarily bad, right? Maybe one of these things, if we did it ourselves, we could derive a net positive out of it. I mean, the problem is like, we just don't know. I don't know. I'm to be honest, I'm not sure the way I'm going to go on this because I take the staff's point on this, that it is easier to go along, but then at the same time, like I said, I thought we approached it in a reasonable way, but it didn't seem like any of it was taken or considered. And I have a problem with.
So I think to Councillor Bailey's point, this was brought to us last fall and we carried it. So I think when we rolled it out just a couple of weeks ago, while everyone else was agreeing on it and it rolled out to everyone, I think at the same time, it came to most of the council meetings all at the same time. Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong. Go ahead.
Sure, yes. Council saw the agreement in September
2023.
and agreed in principle and asked that there be a cap, and staff went back and asked for that. And it was told that it would not work just with the way that they're invoicing, right? Like for the previous year. And okay, so if there's a cap, then does the committee not just continue to work? But lost my train of thought now. The terms of reference, we actually don't have to endorse because that's the committee's terms of reference. It's really just to present the terms of reference. So staff from each of the local governments, after we got those motions that said that the councils or the boards agreed in principle to the agreement, it was like, okay, we're going with this, right? And so we're going to develop the terms of reference. We're going to get things in play, talk to the province, let them know what we're doing. And that's what happened. And then the terms of reference were completed, and it's like, okay, let's formalize this, right? And so that's what you saw at the last meeting. And so there's been a year of work working towards this regional model that has a regional perspective. And so, there wasn't really room or time to have additional asks. We also already had Golden and Revelstoke opt in, so their councils have supported, and now Salmon Arm has as well.
I just have a point
Go
of
ahead.
information. So unless I'm mistaken, the first time we saw this agreement and understood what it meant was 2 weeks ago in terms of the actual.
No,
September 2023,
This agreement was presented.
this agreement was presented and,
No cap and we didn't appoint the committee member?
yeah, no.
we asked for a cap.
Yeah.
That was our only ask from 2023. Is that would they cap it? And they said the way that the building is laid out, they didn't want to cap it, and none of the other regions request cap. So we're the only ones. So then staff worked on it and presented it 2 weeks ago, and here we are. Go ahead, Sarah.
Just when there was a reference to grants and whether, how that would be divvied up. And so any funding this is in the agreement, 0.5, any funding contributions granted to the committee will be shared equally amongst the parties. And this grant that we're talking to, this conditional grant, is specifically for the committee to develop the plan.
Okay, thank you.
So there's no plan?
Councillor Bushel.
That's what this committee will be doing, is making recommendations on the creation of accessibility plans that will be in regional plan, and then that we can take and council can look at, you know, from a Sycamus lens.
Councillor Bushel and Councillor Beach.
Through the chair, I think I say, I mean, it's a tough one. I don't like that they won't put a cap on it. I think financing, you can juggle the numbers all you want to make an annual cap like they do in any other sport or any other thing. My problem is that it's like the rec center. I mean, every year it's 50% more, 50% more. I mean, we're already experiencing on the rail trail. We're a small community. They all, you know, they $3,000 is a drop in the bucket to them. You know, Revelstoke's got 9,000, Golden's area, surrounding areas, 7,000. Like we're a small community with with Area E, where I think we're like 30, I don't know, we're 37, no, 4,000, something like that. We're a small community, and I don't know. I have a hard time jumping into another, it's almost a service agreement. It's not a service agreement, but it is. There's no, you know, you can opt out. Maybe we can do it right from the beginning and do it ourselves.
Councillor Beach and Sarah.
Thank you. Through the chair. I agree. I think I recall us saying, let's not sign up for any more of these kinds of agreements with other communities that involve shared costs and no caps. And but I also want to point out that as a community, we are already extremely accessible, and I don't think we need to work with Revelstoke and Golden to figure out how to be more accessible. We are flat level. We know, I know about accessibility. We don't need to work with Salmon Arm, Golden and Revelstoke about accessibility. We can do it ourselves. That's my feeling.
Thanks, Councillor Beach. Sarah, go ahead, and then Bianca.
Through the chair, I just wanted to share that, you know, there is an end date on this agreement, and there is the option to provide 6 months written notice. We haven't given it a try yet. There's been a lot of work that's been done. We've committed through a previous motion from council in 2023 that agreed to the agreement in principle in good faith. And I think, you know, is there an appetite to even just try it on for a year and see how it goes? Look at the, you know, the costs at that point in time. And then, you know, then there will be some work that's done that can transfer over into a committee led by the district of Sycamus. It's just a.
Thank you, Sarah. Bianca?
And just from a finance perspective, every invoice goes across my desk. If it were to exceed the $3,000, I can let my whole finance department know that council will be made aware if it surpasses that. Just if we do want to proceed with this, and I can make sure that whenever that invoice comes, when it's supposed to come, I can put it in all of our calendars that it's supposed to come by this date. And if it does surpass the $3,000 that council was originally comfortable putting as the maximum, I can make sure that council is made aware of it right away.
Okay, Councillor Evans and Councillor Rich.
Yeah, well, a year ago, we voted in principle on this. A lot of the groundwork's been laid. We've got options to opt out. We can get out anytime we want. Our staff is so busy right now with other big projects that I would love to see us just try it for a year. And then if we don't like it, we can get out. Because we agreed to this a year ago, and so I think we should just go ahead with it and save our staff some trouble right now. And it's play it by ear. If we don't like it, we can get out.
Councillor Rich.
Through the chair, I'm going to be the devil's advocate, and I appreciate all the work the staff has done. And we did a year ago say in principle, that is also when we asked for the cap. We didn't actually hear that they wouldn't deal with the cap up until 2 weeks ago. So we weren't playing with all the information up until 2 weeks ago. And staff has gone back, and today again is where we're here. They're not saying it's $3,000. It could be $3,000, but we won't put a cap on it. And it could be $9,000. I just, we get into these agreements and it just, you're dealing with 19,000 people in Salmon Arm. It's CSRD appointed. Even if you put the numbers in that, so Sycamus gets 2 people that go and apply, they've got a group of 19 to pull from. 19,000 people sitting on a committee that they pull 4, they need 6, but however it works, the chances of us having representation from Sycamus aren't huge, just if it's a numbers game, statistically. And we're a really unique community. And I agree with Pam that, and I think that there are certain check marks we have to hit. And it's not saying staff hasn't done their job here. I think what happened was this came back after the fact, and they came back 2 weeks ago and said, we won't cap this. And they won't. And that's a pretty big gamble with taxpayers' money in my, I think we just need to call the vote, but.
Sarah, go ahead.
I'm just going to reiterate that the projected costs for running it ourselves is higher than what is projected from the regional model. And just happy to hear direction because we need to move forward.
Councillor Evans.
3 times. 3,000 or about 9,000 estimated.
For a year.
I think that's why we should go for a year, give it a shot. If we don't like it, we get out.
Councillor Bailey.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then that's what we should tell them. That we'll sign up for 1 year. And let's be very clear with that. And then I'll support it under those circumstances. That we go and we say, we are giving this 1 year trial. And basically don't be mad at us if after that we decide that we're not going to do it anymore. Not having the cap, not having the ability to appoint the members of the committee, I would never really sign an agreement like this. So, but we're in a bit of a quandary here, a bit of a corner. I don't like the corner I'm in, but in terms of getting on with it, that's fine. But I don't know how I do this, make an amendment to it. But there isn't anything to make an amendment to. So, I mean, maybe I would add to the motion that we give clear indication that we are trying this on a 1 year basis. And we will review it at that time.
We could perhaps ask staff to do that. Go ahead, Sarah.
Through the chair, so we can't do that. We can give notice for the agreement, which is 6 months. So we could try for half a year. We could do it for a full year, look what the expenses are, and then give notice, get out 6 months later. That's the way the agreement is structured. And the options here are reconsider the past 2 motions or direct staff to proceed with the planning required to establish a committee.
Councillor McCabe.
I thought the agreement that we're considering here has an end date in 2025.
It's 2026, I believe,
I thought it was 2025.
I thought it,
December 31st. Right?
2026.
2026, December 31st? Yes.
2.5 years.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
with the option to extend upon mutual agreement on or before October 1st.
Or 6 months notice to opt out at any
Yeah, or
time.
6 months notice to opt out.
So in fact, we don't need,
Go ahead,
we
Councillor.
don't really need to make an amendment or anything because he's there to opt out. So we could try for 6 months, give him notice, and then it's, we're at the end of a 1 year period, we're out.
Which is kind of addresses your concern.
Yeah, so if council chooses to reconsider the past motions, there's 2 options to do that. So under the procedure bylaw, 2 members can ask for those to be reconsidered and then you can vote on them. Or the mayor can require it under section 131, of course, seen that prior. Or we don't even look at that and then direct staff to proceed with plans to establish a committee.
So McCabe.
Thank you.
No,
Susan.
sorry, I don't mean to.
It's okay.
No, I'm just thinking, I'm sorry to make this sound that, I'm just,
Long day, yeah.
and it's just,
I'm just gonna.
there's a lot of thought.
Asking for reconsideration.
Pardon me?
I'm just saying on record, I'm one of the counselors asking for
Right.
reconsideration.
I think that's what we're doing, right? Right, that's,
We need 2.
oh,
Councillor Evans already did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
so
so then what would occur through the chair is that we reconsider the motions from the last, and you will vote again.
Councillor Bailey?
well, maybe it's a question to you, Mayor. I mean, you're gonna be sitting on the only board that's gonna actually be appointing these people if we go ahead and reconsider this. I mean,
To your point, I'm gonna be the only one sitting there that is opted out as well, right? So,
well, yeah, I guess one of my big concerns is that I don't think we should be, putting money into a group that we don't have some sort of guaranteed representation on. I just don't like the structure. I don't like that there's not a cap, but I also don't like that there's not like, okay, each municipality gets a representative for sure. And I don't know why for the life of me, that wasn't actually put into this agreement. That would have just seemed to me logical. And I don't understand why. Like I don't know, like if I was building this agreement, it would just be like everybody give a representative and that's the committee, right? Obviously, there's a couple of statutory things that one of them has to be First Nations, but there's only 5 parties to this. So if the committee is 6, one is First Nation, then the other 5 got appointed. So I don't know why that's not how it's structured. So like I said, I'm in a corner, I don't like it, but I think I think it's probably better to go with the regional approach, but it's not a great agreement. I don't think it's a great agreement. But the alternative is not great either.
no, I hear you. See you.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson, the council. Just correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah's that the Culver volunteers will be a big pool. Right?
Yes, and it's up to each participating member to share out the information. And so we're gonna be encouraging our community members to, apply. Noting that, half of the committee has to be comprised of those with accessibility issues or that work in organizations that support those with accessibility concerns. So, and that the intent is to pull representatives that represent all of the geographical regions. Sorry, I've elaborated.
That's perfect. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that for you. True.
Okay, well, you know what? Let's call the question to reconsider, right? Is that where we're at right now? We've got two council members that want to reconsider. Should we call the question to?
So they've noted that they want reconsideration of these two. Can you go back to the slides, please?
From the last meeting.
Yeah, but I don't have the resolution number, but yeah, these are the two resolutions. So the first one would be. Great,
Do you want me to read it?
yeah.
The council authorizes the mayor and corporate officer to enter into a funding agreement with the Columbia Shuswap Regional District, Town of Golden, City of Revelstoke, and City of Salmon Arm on the 28th day of August 2024 to establish a regional accessibility advisory committee.
Get a mover? Counselor Evans? Counselor McCabe? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That one hurt.
Did.
They're not all easy.
Yeah. I mean, it's not required, but
Council.
You know about if it's,
And then the second recommendation, that council endorses the Regional Accessibility Advisory Committee terms of reference as presented on this 14th day of August 2024.
did I get a mover? Counselor Evans? Counselor McCabe?
I just have a question.
Sure.
Why are we endorsing I thought the committee came up with those.
they do. It's just showing your support.
Well, no, I don't really. I mean, I already said go ahead, but then I don't.
Now you're getting more. Now you're getting more.
I don't like how it's written, so
You can vote in favor of one and not.
well, I think I'm going to because I mean, I'd like to have this written a different way. I mean, I see the logic on the first one because of just the time considerations and everything else.
And the cost.
Yeah, and the costs, but, okay.
Okay,
I just wanted to make sure I'm clear on that, yeah.
all in favor? Opposed?
I don't.
Not carried.
Same.
I did not.
No, not carried. Not carried.
I don't agree with how it's written, sorry. Yeah, exactly, that's why I was asking.
Okay, all right.
It's a little,
Oh,
okay.
hey, Sarah, there you go. You're done. So that was tough. Thank you.
Thank-
That was a lot. And it was a lot from us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Okay, moving right along, September council meeting date, recommendation that the September 11th, 2024 committee of the whole and regular council meeting be rescheduled to September the 25th, 2024 in consideration of the 55 plus BC games. Could I get a mover? Counselor Bushel, Counselor Evans. I can update you on this. The reason I'm asking is because the triathlon is at Old Town Bay Marina. It's a big event in our town and Saturday will be, it's a great opportunity for us. And yeah, it is at Old Town Bay and I will be presenting the medals. So as mayor, so doing my marina duty and double time duty for mayor. So that's why I'm asking to move the council meeting. Councilor Bushel?
Nicole, I'm sure she's online, but directly to Daryl. We have quite a few development stuff coming up in September. And is there any way we could, like, I mean, the marathons are usually early in the morning. They should be done by probably noon or 1. Would have a meeting, like a late meeting? Like a 3 o'clock meeting or something?
We actually did discuss maybe going to a 4 o'clock meeting instead, but I don't know what that day, I don't know what the timeline looks like. So I know that they're done at 1:30-ish. So I don't know how long the rest of that process takes. So, I mean, if you want to shoot for 4 o'clock, I don't necessarily need to be here. Councilor Bailey.
Could we just do the 5 o'clock meeting, the council meeting? And then forget the in camera and the committee of the whole? If we have stuff to go through. Yeah, my only thing is, like, if we put everything to that last meeting, is it just gonna be this big monster by the time we get there? But
Yeah, we've had monsters before.
I prefer to avoid them at this point after 2 years, but no, I understand what you're saying. So,
Daryl, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, certainly. In answer to your question, Board, absolutely. Like there are planning matters. Could they be delayed? Yes. There are some that we thought would require advertising, but we have since determined that they're not. If we had a regular meeting at 5 o'clock, that would really help us plow through a bunch of things. But staff, we recognize, the reason why this has been brought up, and we just hope that you can find, a date. If you want to go with 11th, if 5 works, that's fantastic.
Councillor Richard, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, through the chair, I just, I think if we do the 5 o'clock and if, like, boards, aren't you deputy mayor?
Yeah, he is. He can take the chair. I'm not here. Absolutely.
And then just, I think the planning guys would have to keep moving.
Councillor Evans.
I would suggest that we started at 3. And, because if you can't make it, Council Bush
Sure.
can take over.
Councillor Bailey.
I was just, the reason I suggested 5 was that would give you time, and then the chances of you being able to make it is probably better at 5 than anything before. And that's the start of our regular meeting anyways, but I'm fine to do whatever council wants, so.
Councillor McLean.
I'm good with just a regular council meeting on the 11th.
At 5? Councillor Beach.
Yeah, I think the 5 o'clock will work because I actually volunteered to help with the 55.
Okay, yeah, it's a day. It's an event in town. Okay, so is everyone good at 5? Okay, let's amend that to 5 o'clock on the 11th. Or do you want me to?
Council Committee of the Whole.
Well, through the chair, was there a mover and seconder? Was the resolution, sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can clarify it, but was to council the committee of the whole and
Reschedule.
But did you read the recommendation that's on the agenda?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
The committee of the whole and regular council meeting to be scheduled. So we can just vote. We can vote this,
Vote it down.
vote it down.
Yeah.
All in favor.
sorry, sorry, I thought you said you were voting it down.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
Don't vote for it.
don't vote for it. So the recommendation is to move it. I don't want you to vote.
Right, yes, I understand.
Okay, I get it.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, defeated.
I'd like to make a motion
Go ahead.
that we hold a regular council meeting on September 11th at 5 o'clock.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
There we go.
Thank you.
Good, excellent. Okay, moving right along, we're going to the arena service review. Board, Councillor Bushel, on recommendation of the District of Sycamore staff engage the Columbia Shuswap Regional District with a informal service review relating to the district Sycamoose and District Recreation Center. Could I have over Councillor Bushel? Councillor Beach? Councillor Bushel?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, we had a meeting, Daryl and Bianca and Siobhan and myself, we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago or a week ago in regards to the rec center and just some of the issues that are still going on over at the rec center. And just felt it was time to, we've listened to Kevin Flynn and John McLean talk about a review. John thought it was unheard of when a service review goes 44 years without being reviewed. And but still nothing's happened. So we just thought we should initiate it, and Daryl kind of agreed, and maybe you might want to say something, Daryl.
Yeah, go ahead, Theo.
Great, thank you, Mayor Anderson, members of council, absolutely. So yes, the arena was built in 82. There was a bylaw that established that. Since then, there have been a series of management agreements that have been struck with, going back with the society and then the contractor. And at present, the society is the owner operator of that building. So I believe the best way forward is to, and that's why I made reference to informal. You have the ability under the legislation to move this thing forward, but the recommendation here is that we sit down and there's a portfolio, and that portfolio includes Councillor Bailey, Councillor Bushel, and Councillor Rich. So we would like to put you to work. And the idea being is, there's been lots of conversations. There's been a lot of things, a lot of chatter that has transpired over the years. I think it's time for us to sit down. And the objective here, and this is very prudent, and I know that the CSRD would be very receptive to this approach. Sit down and we identify the issues and really list them rather than just one-offs everywhere. We sit down and we go through everything in terms of what our expectations would be at that facility. Have that review, right? If that includes speaking with our recreation director about programming, additional utilization in that building, we need to be exhaustive. We need to create something that we can take, have a meeting with the CSRD and including Area E director. The intent here is to do it in good faith. I know there's been lots, and what I'm suggesting is let's do it in a professional, positive manner. And I think it's incumbent upon us to go through this exercise whereby we know the rules of engagement. We're not creating a management agreement. We are providing recommendations and come up with solution-based decisions and appeal to the CSRD. I think that's what they want. We just need to be very defined in our approach. There are some of the matters that council has asked for, like the online booking, the policy built around that. There's been some questions about the display cases at the building. This is our opportunity. I gave to you some information late last week that there is movement on the online booking. We're waiting for the policy. A draft will will come in our way for review, and that there is movement on putting jerseys as an example, right? There have been discussions and the display case to be moved from the upstairs in the bleacher area to the main level, floor to ceiling, something that I guess it was a safety concern in the past. At least there's a willingness there. And that's as a result of, prior conversations. So my recommendation would be to use those members in their portfolio of council. And then we'll give consideration to the, ice time, the other user groups. Right? Jamie's a good resource because she works within that environment and she'd be very useful for us in understanding where the weaknesses are, or at least help us formulate our terms of reference, so to speak.
Thanks, Cheryl. Go ahead, Councillor Bailey, whatever your name is.
Yeah, I really like that approach because, there's been friction around this issue and we need to get past that, but we need to have the conversation as well in a very professional and collaborative way, because I think there's a lot of stuff that we can work on there. And I think it could be a positive thing. And I think that's, well, you put it perfectly, Daryl. And I totally agree. And I think it's an opportunity, I think, well, for maybe the district and the CSRD to start working together on what is a very important community asset for everybody. So I fully support this. Yeah.
Councillor Evans.
44 years is a long time, so I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. Okay, so any more discussion about this? Councillor Rich.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, that we go in this way. The only thing that I ask is that we kind of have a date in mind. I know we have to get everybody together and but it's not another 6 or 8 months out. It's within, and I know that we have UBCM and we've got a lot of things on the thing, but this has been a long time coming.
Certainly.
So
Commit to
that would be it,
this one.
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to call the question on. Oh, sorry.
Through the chair, I just wanted to mention, I did get a letter from a group in Salmon Arm. They've been trying to book the ice for the 55 game practice, just to practice, a bunch of men that have a few teams, and they've been trying for a long time to get ice time. They couldn't get a hold of anybody. So I told them to write the board. They're gonna write the chair and the board. I said, don't write, I mean, they can send us CC a copy, but I said, don't write it to the management, write it to the board so they know what's going on. Because that is the problem. If you notice, the revenue in that, the expenses in that place have gone up substantially, like 50%, over 50% every year for the last 4 years, but the revenue hasn't changed. That rink should be humming. And if nobody's picking up the phone, you can't get in to rent it. That's the problem with the revenue side of things, right? So guess who pays for the revenue or pays the expenses? The taxpayers. So it has to be managed properly. And when you can't get inside, it's a problem.
Maybe you could share that name with me because
You'll be getting a copy.
that's perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. All the question, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, building inspection service agreement, Bianca. There's a recommendation that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to enter into a service agreement with Michelle Vogue to provide a building inspection services. Could I get a mover? Councillor Rich, Councillor Bushel. Bianca?
I'm the insurance agreement piece of this.
Yeah.
So, I think Daryl?
Daryl?
Mayor Anderson, if I may.
Of course.
Council, so this agreement, what this agreement does is that we would like to engage the services of a contractor for the provision of a building official. Our prior building official, Don, what's Don's last name?
Would have been.
Yeah, is no longer with us. He had provided notice that he was severing the contractual relationship with the district. So we had staff got quick to reach out. We've refocused how our building official, like our Tyson, and what he can do from plumbing inspections. But we have a number of commercial projects and large developments that we need to address. So it was a sense of urgency on our part to find someone. So we reached out to other jurisdictions. We had conversations with Revelstoke. We had a conversation with the city of Salmon Arm. We had a conversation with the Columbia Shuswap Regional District. We went through, I'm sorry, Shauna.
So we went through the OADC, which is
That's
the
it.
governing body, the official association, for contractors in our area that are available, an RBO, a level 3 that can do commercial to provide the services.
Yeah, and that's how we found this individual. And we have reached out, and this agreement is not unlike the agreement that we had with the past contractor. So the language, the remuneration is consistent. And there is a sense of urgency on our part.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Michelle was not new to us. A couple of years ago when we had contracted Kenny Gix before he actually was employed with us when he was doing, Michelle did plan checking for us at that. No one told us that's really good work. So it was an easy to do together.
Perfect.
Thank you, Shauna.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion? Gordon?
Yeah, I heard she's really good to work with and a lot of the builders in town enjoy working with her. Just curious, she's the chief building inspector for the CSRD. With us, seem to be ramping up with construction and maybe a couple two more other projects other than the ones that are on Main Street happening. I'm not sure how far away is Tyson from a level 3. Do we know how many years?
2+.
2+?
It's just level 1, and yeah, once they get their education, it's 1 point, they become certified, but to be fully qualified, they have to put in hours of work in their education plan, and that is 2+ years before he can go for his level.
And it would be great, if he can be mentored but as long as we can have, I know she's the chief building inspector for the CSRD. If we can, we don't lose access to her when we have all these developments going, and nice to have level 3 here, but I mean, can we wait 2.5 years? I like Tyson. I think sort of the builders all like him, but we can't do even a plumbing permit right now. So we have to have access to a level 3. So just my concern.
So I guess just a question to you, Daryl, or Shauna, whoever, sounds like this person's kind of busy already. I mean, is this going to add to already probably a high workload? I'm just curious if she has a full-time job, and then we're asking her to do things for us in a timely manner. Is this, I'm just kind of thinking like, we have a very long kind of agreement here to 2025. I'm just asking, I guess, for your opinions on the sustainability of it in terms of making sure we can still get our stuff done, and then she obviously has a big job to do as well, right?
Go ahead, Daryl, then Shauna.
Let me just, I'll defer to Sean after, based on conversations with Michelle and the way that the scheduling sort of envisioned. I'm understanding the fact that there is lots of capacity for Michelle to provide those inspection services for the district of Sycamore without, if there were like 45 applications or inspections, like if something dramatically changed, but based on the development that we foresee in the next 6 months, absolutely.
Okay.
She has the capacity.
Right.
Shauna, did you want to add anything to that?
No, just to said that she would commit, there are some days, when she has select days that she can commit, as well as, hours. As well, which sometimes works better for, and just a correction of that, Tyson is a point. When he can do plumbing inspections,
We can.
and he will.
Some of the contractors said he couldn't, so. Yeah, good.
And my understanding too is that we've got a bit of a backlog right now, which she can kind of blow out, and then it'll just fall into place a little bit. From what I understand, is that correct? Okay, let's call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, and then there's another part to this, that council authorize a corporate officer to sign the service provider agreement between the district of Sycamore and Michelle Bog this 28th day of August 2024. Can I get a mover? Councillor Beach, Councillor Bushel, all in favor? And that's carried. Thanks. Oh, sorry, Bianca.
I'm good.
Bianca?
We, in one of these last.
Did you want to
You guys know what it is.
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
say that word that we cover for?
No.
We're good.
Sorry, Bianca. All right, moving right along. The Eagle Valley, just correspondence, Eagle Valley Snowmobile Club letter of support follow up. This is, I think council had asked for this. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair, we added it to the agenda just to show that that letter went out to Kelsey Knoll in support of the section 57 application for the Eagle Valley Snowmobile Club. And she did respond stating that it would be added to the file.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Correspondence for information. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, good letters. Sandy's concerns about the bridge project and the safety on Highway 97 is good. I'm just echoing what Councillor Rich already talked about earlier. Dwight's letter was very good, and I would love to see that happen for our beach, some kind of ramp so people can get down there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McKay.
Yeah, so both those two letters, speed reduction during construction and the accessibility ramp, we should, I'm suggesting support. I think, I don't know we haven't seen the traffic management plan from the Ministry of Transportation yet for bridge construction. I think part of the plan, I'm not positive though, is a speed reduction on Highway 97, so that might already be covered. But we should think of that, I think. And accessibility ramp. Yeah, I think we talked about that earlier.
Yeah, and I think that maybe Daryl, you can speak to this. I think we've looked into this before. This isn't the first time this has come to council. It isn't, correct?
Through the chair, it's been brought up by another resident, and then there was a resident that suggested the swing. And so these would all be great things to bring forward to the accessibility committee. And for implementation, I think there was going to be discussions at budget time was the last.
So, and my point to you, Daryl, is going to be, because of the, I'm just trying to dig back. The level in the lake goes down, so
Chair, that was the biggest challenge and
trying to find something that would
Oh.
scare and
Reboard.
absolutely. So maybe is there some investigation or some research we could maybe have a look at doing?
It would have to be, yeah, explored a little.
Accessibility board? Okay, Councillor Rich.
Through the chair. Yeah, and maybe even which someone brought this up to me this summer because they were old and they were trying to get down the big brick steps. And that the steps are like, they're not normal steps, which I've never really noticed because I'm not old yet. But maybe that's even something we can look into because when you go down, if you don't walk down to the far end of the beach, if you're by the bridge parked there, you either have to make all your way all the way down and around. And if you haven't planned or don't think about it, that the elderly are, they're just big steps. So it's maybe something as easy as that, putting in some different size steps. I don't know.
Councillor Evans, Councillor Bushel.
I agree with that idea, at least for now, just some normal steps down into the lake with, down onto the beach with, some kind of railing. Cause I know that the other idea of a ramp and on the adjusting water levels would involve an engineer.
Mm.
So, at least it would be something that we can do for now. I wanted to, I have another comment about Sandy's letter about the highway, but I can come back to that if you want.
Okay. Yeah, let's come back to that. Gord, is yours to the,
Yeah, through the chair, we talked about this quite a bit and I did give Daryl a design that they sell. It's really expensive. But I did show Todd at TA Structures and TA could build one really easy and that would be functional. And you could use a wheelchair on it, wheelchair ramp on it. And you could have removable arms if you wanted to, as the lake went up and down, but it could rest on the bottom floor like all the commercial ones do that they have on the market. So it's doable.
okay, Daryl, we'll leave that with you.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Evans.
And just in case Sandy's listening or someone else, it's already 80. It was 90 years ago, but they've reduced it to 80 a long time ago. So she's advocating for 80, but it's already 80. So she might be asking, she'd probably be interested in some of the 80s being reduced to 70 with some of the traffic. So that's just one thing I want to point out.
And until, like Malcolm, Councillor McCabe said, until, you know what, they've got a plan, which should be soon. Find out more and then we can advocate for a speed reduction if there isn't one already in there, and then we can. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Committees and regional district reports. Any questions? Comments? No. Okay, public input. Public? Anyone online that wants to make any comments? Hand up or speak up? Okay, that's it. That's a wrap. I'm going to recommend that the regular council meeting for August 28th, 2024 be adjourned at 6:43. Could I have a mover? Councillor Evans, Councillor Ritt, all in favor? And we're done.